Hello, this is Michael Hayes with the Hiring Confessional. Today we're going to be talking with an exciting guest, actually a client of mine, so he can tell you if I do halfway decent job or not. But as I usually like to start off with some tips, I got kind of a mixed bag today for employers and people that are looking for a job. One of the things I find every day, because I look at job boards and we have people applying for industrial positions, is update your resume, please. Don't tell me you can't update it on Indeed or you can't update it through your email system or whatever. Everybody knows you can. And I hear that nonstop. All you're doing is telling people you don't know how to use computers. And that is not a good idea, especially in today's world. So put your stuff on your resume that's actually relevant. What about an email address? That would be great too. And the correct phone number. Do you know how many times I call people and it's a wrong phone number? At least 2 or 3 times a week. That is ridiculous. Now, my therapist told me, don't get too mad about these things. So I got this thing she gave me called a rage chip. And when I get stuff like that all the time when I'm looking for people, that ruins my rage chip. So just remember that. The other thing I like to talk about is don't, as an employer, think you can use this AI stuff to do all your hiring. Again, lots of employers that are in the 200 up to 250 to 500 employees are starting to think they can use AI to do all their hiring. AI does not talk to people. You will miss out on more quality hires because you're not meeting with them individually. And you're not meeting with the people that you want to hire. And guess what? Your competition is. So if you're going to use AI to hire, you're going to be lonely at your own business. Update your contact infos all the time on your resume. Get an email address. I've already talked about this again, but I cannot tell you how many times I email somebody and they don't have the correct email and it bounces back. You're missing out on a job offer. That's not very intelligent. And after 10,000 interviews that I've done before I stopped counting, no one's going to tell you your hiring sucks. I will tell you your hiring sucks. The thing that Momentum Hiring Solutions does is we fix your hiring. So if you have any questions about that, please reach out to me. Today, I have one of my best customers, Air2O, who is a manufacturer here in North Phoenix. The co-founder, Tom Sullivan, is the COO. I have him on today, and we're going to talk about hiring and his business. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you having me here.
Oh, anytime. Give us a little background on, because you're from the UK, obviously. Give us, how'd you get here and how'd you get involved with Air2O?
So as a co-founder, I was 12, 14 years ago, I was in the British Army. So that's my background. I'm an electrical engineer by trade. And post-Afghanistan, 2012, 2013 era, there was an opportunity to found Air2O as one of the founding partners. And really we started as an engineering company, a company that would design systems that didn't already exist. You've got catalog systems that are already there, but there's a gap. And we saw that gap. We knew that there was a solution, and we would engineer those solutions. So we were an engineering company to start with. Fast forward, we do a good job at that, right? And we get the attention of some VC firms here in Arizona, actually Scottsdale. I'd never heard of Scottsdale prior to that. So in 2017, we flew out to Scottsdale in April, which is the best time. I wasn't not aware of what I was letting myself in for in the summer. But we signed some VC deals and actually came over to Scottsdale in 2017. Joined the local trade organizations and commerce authorities and went on to ACA's Venture Ready program that helps us grow. We were 5 people at the time. And then in 2021, we got a private equity investment in 2021, and that was really the catalyst that changed. We became then a fully bespoke engineering and manufacturing company. So from 2021 to now, we've had several 100% growth. We're sitting at somewhere around 150 employees today globally. We have employees in 20 different countries, but we have the majority of them are headquartered here out of Phoenix. We're just in the process of going through a 6 times expansion in the North Valley, in Deer Valley, and we're looking to have around another 200 jobs onboarded by the end of 2027.
You know, it's interesting because I started working with you like 4 years ago with Tony, obviously referred me.
The CFO,
Yeah, and that's, I think, the first time I met you. And I was fascinated because I'm a big fan of air conditioning.
Yeah.
Because I've lived, I was born here. So air conditioning has always been like my number one issue. So tell them a little bit about the units you make and where they best fit into the economy and things like that.
Certainly in Arizona, I mean, air conditioning is front of all of our minds, right? We don't do what's called comfort cooling. So we're sitting in here now with the air conditioning on. That's a comfort cooling approach. We do thermal management for mission critical. And that's just a fancy way of saying anywhere where the environment, the temperature, the humidity, the control of that environment is critical to the output. For example, data centers, lithium-ion manufacturing, microchip, pharmaceutical, healthcare. If you get a change in the environment, in that thermal environment, something downstream is going to be affected. So they're really the markets that we focus on. To put it into perspective, your household AC unit, somewhere in the region of $7,000 to $10,000 for a household in Arizona AC unit. One of our units, could be upwards of $750,000 for one unit. So a different scale.
When you develop that product, it also has a energy saving component. So because it can do like VAP cooling, plus it can do regular AC cooling. Explain that, because I was pretty interested when I looked that stuff up when I first started working with you, because that's pretty unusual.
Sure. I mean, there's 5 things you can do to air, right? You can heat it, cool it, add moisture, take moisture away, and clean it. And that's it. They're the 5 things you can do to air. So we're always doing one or more of those 5 things in any application that we do. So there's 2 things you look for in efficiency. One is new technology, pushing the max tech, the technological boundaries to incorporate cutting edge technology, which is more efficient. That could be new motor technology, but it could also just be new cutting edge technology that's right on the fringes. So we're always looking to bring that in. We're always innovative. We're innovators first, engineers first. And that's great if you can find a tech that is efficient in itself, being new tech. There's another form of energy efficiency, which we call efficient by design. What that means, most systems in the world are cookie cutter systems. They're mass-produced systems for the 80 percentile, right, of applications. But there's the mission critical applications where a cookie cutter solution doesn't work. It's either a little bit too small or a little bit too big. What we do is we make it efficient by design. We design it exactly for that application or for that user or for that purpose. It isn't oversized. It isn't undersized. Every watt, every power, every part of that unit is designed for its output, for its purpose. So there's no wasted energy. So that's efficiency by design.
So again, when we're talking about data centers and everybody, now you're getting the data center bad and all that stuff. So you've got something that's actually using is more a conservative way to cool your place.
Absolutely. First of all, data centers are not bad. I just want to say that they're very good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of myths around data centers.
Turn it off and find out how everybody likes it. Yeah.
Exactly. The irony of people complaining about data centers on Twitter, or X now, which is using data centers and edge compute in order to get that message out there. The irony is hard to ignore. But no, data centers are a good thing. They are actually very energy efficient for what they are. Gone are the days where we're using inefficient technologies. There are efficiency standards that need to be there, and we work with the hyperscalers, with the likes of Facebook and Google and Oracle to design the next generation of equipment, whether that be air-cooled stuff, which is where we've been for the last 30 years, and now transitioning into liquid-cooled data centers, which is an exciting horizon for us to be crossing.
Now, one of the things I noticed when I came to your place, the first time Tony gave me a tour, I was shocked at how clean the place was.
Yep.
Like, I'm a big clean freak. So like as soon as I went in the door, like, oh my God, this place is spotless. And like when you tell people that, like when I'm recruiting the people and I'm saying, hey, listen, this isn't like an OSHA minefield. This is like a clean place that's climate controlled. And I don't think people believe me, but tell them, I mean, that's exactly how your place is.
Absolutely. So I was 10 years in the military prior to this, and there are standards. And I brought those standards. That is part of my experience. That is part of the fabric of who I am. And that has brought that into business and into entrepreneurship. And for me, there's a standard, and it's a binary standard. There's no gray area. It either is or it isn't. It's a 1 or a 0. And we have that across the board. So, we start work at 6 a.m., 6:00. And if you come in at 6:00 and 10 seconds, you are late. And there is a consequence for that. You don't get shouted at, you're not a bad person, you're just late. It just is. You're binary, a 1 or a 0. And it's the same for what we call engineering and manufacturing hygiene standards. So we're a lean organization, first of all. So that means that there's a place for everything. Everything has a home. But also our shop floor and engineering hygiene is a standard. And we have to meet that standard every day. And there are consequences if we don't meet that standard. And that really translates into everything that we do. For example, and this is a little unpopular in the newer generations, but we have a uniform at Air2O. All of our technicians have a uniform, and there is a uniform standard. You must have your shirt tucked in. What difference does it make if I tuck my shirt in? It isn't the point about having a difference, but that's the standard. And you either have your shirt tucked in or you don't, and it's a 1 or a 0, and that's the standard. And what we believe actually is that if you take pride in your appearance, right, and you're professional in your appearance, if you take pride in the appearance of your work area, your immediate kind of 5-foot work area, and then your larger work area spanning out to 20 feet. If everybody does that, all 150 employees do that all day, every day, Constantine is into a much bigger effect. But it actually translates into the product. If in your subconscious you care about your shirt being tucked in, you're also going to care about that screw being fastened the right way, all right, about the sensor being installed at the right angle. Like the little details matter. And if we look after all of the little details, that translates into a good product at the end.
Okay, so you mentioned two things that the trolls of this show just hate.
Yep.
One of them was being on time.
Mm-hmm.
They'll have people that make comments about being on time and baby boomers are crazy and why did you give a bald guy a show and all this other stuff. They say things like that and they don't get this time thing. And I've always had a hard time explaining that to people. But the other one was the dress. Okay, so now we're adding the dress. And I've never heard that one before, which I think, hey, it's kind of something that gets people in the mood to be at work, and it's more of a professional thing. But people will just fight that. I mean, that I know, or that watched, or the trolls. The trolls love talking about anything that builds character or things like that. Have you had any pushback on that, or how's that gone?
So we do a 90-day probationary period where you don't get issued a uniform, right? So the uniform is the reward, and we call them blue shirts. So when you pass your 90-day probation, you become a blue shirt. And we make it a prideful thing to become a blue shirt. Like you should, want to become a blue shirt. For 90 days, you have to wear normal civilian clothing with a big blue high-vis vest that says trainee on the back. So you really stand out. And that doesn't matter, by the way, if you're a high school graduate or a trade school graduate or a 20-year journeyman professional. The standard is the same. It's a leveler. And we do that very intentfully. And by the way, it's okay not to like those things. That's fine. That's part of the process. If you are like, no, I'm not going to tuck my shirt in and I don't want to be on time, no problem. You are not a bad person. You're just not the right person to work here. And finding the people that are not the right people to work here, as well as the people that are the right people to work, both of those things are equal. So we have this filtering process. You have to go through your 90 days to get your blue shirt. But you know what? We've had employees several times in tears on their 90th day, because we do a ceremony. We get the entire company together and we present you with your shirts. You get 11 shirts and 11 trousers or shorts or however the makeup is, and it has your name on it. And that's that is your name. That is next to the company logo, and that is, you've got this sense of belonging now of being part of the team, and you're no longer this trainee in the trainee vest. And we also issue them with a company toolbox, a blue roll-around toolbox, and it's a point of pride for people. So yeah, we get pushback, but that's a good thing. Pushback is a good thing.
And that's kind of a military thing.
I think, look, we're not the military, obviously, and
right.
the trolls will say, this is too much like the military. No, it isn't. What it is the military taught me why standards matter. When I was in the military, I had fellow soldiers that would complain, why do we need to polish our boots? Why do we need to iron perfect creases into our uniform when we're in the battlefield in Iraq or Afghanistan? It doesn't make a difference. No, a crease in your uniform does not make a difference. What it does, though, is it trains you to look for the little details. It trains you to care about the small details. Then when you're on the battlefield and you notice something different, you pick up on that quicker. So it isn't about the uniform being perfect. It's about the other skills that teaches you that you can apply. For example, when we say that your turnout, how you look at work is to a certain standard, the shirt being tucked in, and your shirt comes untucked during the day, and then you have the mental capacity and fortitude to stop yourself and tuck your shirt back in again. When you're doing something on the job and something goes wrong, you know to catch it, you know to change it, you know to change that part out and not just cover it up, right? It's part of a bigger sense of rules and disciplines. It's disciplines that we teach in them in order to facilitate high quality product.
So when I started working with you guys, I had a staffing company, and everybody knows how staffing works. You get loaned out to a place, and nowadays it's become more where it's kind of the real low-level type worker. And it's expensive to do, and there's not a lot of investigation for the people. It's like, hey, do you have a pulse? Great. Drug test, and we'll send you over to wherever we're at. So when Tony found out, I was just doing through Momentum Hiring Solutions, just doing outsourced recruiting, like I was like working for you. He was like, wow, that would probably work because the people are going to come and work direct. And I also when I call like I'm from Air2O. Mm-hmm. So they don't know I'm outsourced, mm-hmm. which is part of the game. Lots of people do not want to be contacted by a third party. That's a no-no. And especially now, no industrial worker needs to use a staffing company. So you've actually taken advantage of that. How did you see that when you first started doing it?
At the end of the day, we outsource, but we can't do it internally. And that isn't just with recruitment and hiring. We outsource sub-assemblies, and that's part of the scale. As an entrepreneur, the growth of the infrastructure always comes behind the revenue. So, the sales are happening much quicker than we can actually build the infrastructure behind it. So we have to rely on partners to help us do that. We were new to the Valley. We came here in 2017 as 3 people. And we didn't know anybody, 3 foreigners in a foreign land, in essence. And we needed to, first of all, tap into and tie into the local infrastructure and the local community, and have that community help us grow our business. So absolutely, that is fundamentally part of the reason we've been able to scale in such a short amount of time.
And the other thing is you guys do a lot of training too, yeah. Because a lot of times, if you're hiring people in the HVAC area, they'll take somebody if they can braze, mm-hmm. or they've got to be able to do the basics, and they'll take a person out of school, which opens up a lot more doors. I mean, how do you balance that? Because I have a lot of customers that go, oh, training's so expensive, and I'm like, well, listen, if you're not training yourself, then you're free agent paying, which mm-hmm. means you're going to pay more. Mm-hmm. So you've probably learned that you got to homegrown some of your own people.
For sure, especially at scale, and especially in today's market, and especially in Arizona. We've got a huge amount of industrial development going on, and it is a competitive recruitment and jobs market. And we look at the talent pipeline as a long-term task. It isn't something you can switch on and off, first of all, and it cannot be reactive. If it's reactive, you will always be behind the curve. We learned that very, very early on. We were having 200% growth per year at one point, and you can't do that in a reactive measure. You must plan for that in a more long-term way. So this is a whole life cycle approach. We never turn this off, and we look at hard skills and soft skills. We need hard skills, absolutely, and we have no problem recruiting trained professionals that are between 1 and 20 years or 30 years of experience. There's no problem with that. But also we don't shy away from people who have no hard skill experience, but they have tremendous soft skills. And we've had some of our best employees in the trades come through. I'll tell you a story about a young lad called Evan. Evans was, when he came to us, a high school graduate. His mum had kicked him out for the day to say, go and get a job, and he was on the sofa playing.
The good old days.
Yeah. I mean, this was only maybe 2-3 years ago. Yeah. Kicked him out and said, go and get a job today. Don't come back till you get a job. And he was just driving around the industrial estates, and we're not in a very prominent area, and he knocked on the door. He didn't have a resume. Maybe wasn't the best prepared. And the person at the door kind of, was a good gatekeeper, if you like, and kind of pushed him away. But I heard the conversation. So I put my head out there. I said, who was that? Oh, it was just a kid looking for a job. I said, go get him. Bring him back. He came and sat in. I said, first of all, thanks for coming out. Appreciate it. I really respect that, getting off and trying going and finding a job, right? Not just sitting on your email account and sending 50 resumes an hour, right? That's not the way to do it. I said, have you ever held a drill before or an impact driver before? No. Have you ever, helped your parents work on no. I was like, okay. He's like, but I want to learn, and I want to get a job, and I want to do right. And, I messed about in high school, but, I want to make, I was like, we're going to give you a chance, right? We're going to give you a chance, because I could see in him the soft skills and the commitment. And we taught him the rules, 6 a.m. If you're late, you're late. And in your probationary period, 3 times, and you're gone. And, the uniform standards and everything else. And he applied himself, and he's one of our top tradespeople now 3 years later. He doesn't have the 20, 30 years of experience, but he's applied himself in the right way. And we can train. We can train all the disciplines. It's much easier, obviously, if you already have those disciplines in hand already. But we would take somebody with tremendous soft skills but no hard skills over someone with tremendous hard skills but is the wrong cultural fit. Every day.
Yeah, because you probably realize this. Over the years, one of my least favorite hires is the welder.
Yeah.
Because welders think they're a brain surgeon. I mean, they say stuff about why only weld. Like, I just sit here and weld all day, and if stuff falls on the floor, somebody else picks it up, and that just drives me crazy. So when I interview welders, I always go. So you do know that if there's not welding, you've got to help with other stuff. And I may not know that or not, but I'm testing the guy. And if I hear, nope, I just weld, and then I usually go, well, that's great. We're gonna get back with you when we can do an interview or blah blah blah. And I end the phone call. Have you run it? I guarantee you've run into people like that
all the time. Yeah. But that's a good filter for us.
Yeah.
So when we started to build the manufacturing part of the company, we brought in 3 foundational cultural rules that we live by to this day. One of them is GSD, get stuff done, right? And ultimately, we are a get stuff done organization. If we're not getting stuff done, the bills are not being paid. So everything that we do, get stuff done, GSD. One of them is work with what you have, right? We're a growing company, we're in hyper growth right now, and sometimes we don't have the tools and the equipment that is needed to do that particular job, but we have some other tools and equipment. We don't want people who are going to complain because they don't have the right tool. We'll get the right tool, but we don't have it at 9 a.m. on a Monday morning, and you still need to work with what you have. That's part of that entrepreneurial startup spirit, so work with what you have. But the really important one, and this is from the CEO, from the top to the bottom, right? It is see it, sort it. What that means is if you see something, you sort it out. You don't go, that's not my job. We do not have that culture here. If you walk past the trash can, we have what's called the warehouse operations team. They're responsible for the forklifts and the shelving and the inventory, but also the cleanliness of the shop floor. But if you're a director of production or the CEO or a welder and you walk past a full trash can, you empty that trash can. If you go past a unit and it has a problem on it that you've seen, you might not be working on that unit. That might be another crew that's working on you, but you see that problem. You don't just think, well, that's somebody else's problem. You work for Air2O. You go and get the supervisor. Hey, I'm just letting you know I saw this thing. And you make sure you take it all the way through to completion. And that is probably our primary cultural rule that we have, that is followed by everybody, that is enforced by everyone. And actually, if you root cause analysis our success, ownership by everybody, everywhere, all the time is part of the success.
Now, you mentioned something that I like a lot, and it's even more prevalent today, or that it's important, but a lot less and less people do it. The pop-in guy, the dude that came by, or the woman, whoever it was that had the sack to walk in and knock on the door. I always tell people I work with, I say, listen, I don't care where you hire them from, because, again, I'm not getting paid a commission and stuff because I'm working as an hourly person. Be aware of people that come by, like your receptionists and stuff. I said, because they might be some of the best people. Mm-hmm. They might be a person that doesn't want to go through Indeed, or they don't want to mail their fax. Oh my God, I just said fax. Or scan their resume and send it to somebody else. So they're going around banging on doors. And those are sometimes the best people. Well, so spend a couple minutes to talk to them.
Sure, it shows something that they've got up, they've gone out. And also, it takes a lot to face rejection, right? To go to an employer's door and to ask for a job in this day and age, that is a rare commodity. And actually, if you strip that back, what that means psychologically for that person, they're showing a lot of the traits that we're after, right? Get stuff done, right? See it, sort it, work with what you have, right? All those three things are in that person who comes to the door, knocks on the door, and asks for a job. Okay, the resume might not be perfect. They might not, Evan didn't have a resume when he came to the door, but if I'd have not given him the time of day at that point, we'd have lost a great tradesperson. So, look, sometimes we have to filter. We had one position that had 170 applicants, right? You can't interview every single one of those. It was impossible. So, there is a time for filtering the applicants and all the rest of it. But what I would say as an employer is be open to all avenues of finding great talent. One of the things we train on regularly now, we have about 13 leaders in the organization. And we train regularly now on, hey, you may have been a great technician that is promoted through the ranks, or a journeyman, electrician that is promoted through the ranks. You're now a full-time recruiter and retainer. Your job now is not to be an electrician anymore. Your job is to find the best people and keep the best people on the team. That is your full-time job. And that's really what we preach at Air2O.
I think the other thing that most people don't understand about the industrial business and why it's hard to find people, first of all, we don't encourage people enough to do it. We've kind of demonized the trades. They're kind of saying, oh, hey, if I can't make it, I'll drive a truck. And I'm like, you don't have any idea what you're talking about. But the other thing is these people are not, as I refer to Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, writing your resume. It's not going to be something that looks like an English paper. So you've got to kind of talk to somebody. The guy that doesn't have the best resume, or just has basically his employment, that's good enough for that job. You don't need to. You're not going to be the CFO of the bank. This is a hand. This is what I call it. I call it a do job. Mm-hmm. You've got to do something. And you might not be the best speaker either, but sometimes that's not a bad thing either, because you're not going to be talking all day anyway. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
The right approach for the right job, right? Exactly. We shouldn't be having the same recruitment and interview process across the board, because what we're looking for in a CFO, in a mechanical engineer, in a forklift operator, they're different things. And we should tailor our approach to get the best out of them at that point. A great example of that, personally speaking, and what I push on to the rest of my organization, is I am not a big fan of the formal interview. I know some people are, and some people swear by it, and it's great for some people. But at Air2O, I'm looking for the best people at the job that they're going to do. And their job that they do is not sit in an interview room answering interview questions. So we have a rule that we go out off-site, and we either have lunch or coffee. something like that, where they can be a little bit more relaxed. And what we're looking for is who you are, not the suit that you wear for your interview and the way you've done your hair and the way you answer the perfectly scripted AI interview questions, right? Because we've seen many of those. This is how you answer this question. When an interviewer says this is what you should say. I don't want the pre-rehearsed baloney. What we want is to know who you are. What is your personality like? How do you handle talking to a server, for example? You learn so much, by the way, when you're having lunch with someone and how either open or receptive they are or dismissive of a server. That will tell you so much about somebody. So we do that. My biggest fear or my biggest belief is how many amazing people at the job, they would have been amazing at that job, but they lost that job or they never got that opportunity because of interview nerves. I've never had to interview in my life. Personally, I've been lucky enough that I've never had to interview in my life. But I could guarantee I would tank an interview. I know I would. But I'm the best at my job, and how sad it would be not to get to that level.
Now the panel interview is what I always I coach students on, where you get the 3 people in the room, and usually they're the people that have either haven't been the best doobies for the last couple of weeks, so they're relegated to doing the interviewing. And you get and when you sit down and then you have this sheet in front of you, because now there's all the questions, so you stop having a conversation and you start like listing the bibliography of the whole thing, and that's where you get that AI answers. They come from, hey, I'm memorizing stuff, so you're not rolling with the flow. And you're talking more about stuff that's out here when it should be more personal.
Yeah.
And I've always told people, if you can kind of latch on to some type of person or something that they're good at, whether you like a certain sport or you look the guy up or the girl up before you interviewed, and I found out where they went to school. And once you break that code, people want to hire people that they like. We all know that.
For sure.
So you're just feeling good about yourself. And I don't know why people don't do that anymore. When I was a kid, you have to go to the library to look this stuff up. Now, all you have to do is look on your phone. But people are lazy. I talked to a guy today, $100,000 sales job where he's getting hired for, and he didn't look up the company. And I'm like, how? I just don't, it just drives me absolutely crazy. And these are people that should know. I get it when you're talking to people that are making like 18 or 20 bucks an hour. I think it's bad, but I understand it more. But if you're somebody with a 4-year degree and 15 years of sales and you didn't look up the company, well, I didn't have time. Well, you knew you had an interview, and this would have taken you 5 minutes. Do you run into that at all?
Yeah, but again, for me, that's a positive because it's a filter.
Yeah.
I only want the very best people. And it's great when I meet a candidate who has no idea who I am or who the business is, because straight away I know, well, you're not going to research a client and you're not going to put the extra effort in for a project. So for me, it's just, it's perfect because it shows that they don't want that job and that they're not right for that job. So I see positives even in the negatives, like as an employer. So I would say to everybody, if you want the job, take the job. Don't leave anything on the table. Research the company, because as an employer, I'll tell you, if you've not researched the company before you walk in that room, I know you don't want it, and then I don't want you. So yeah, for me, it's a natural filter.
And it's interesting because this is happening more and more, the lack of what I would call prep before you meet with somebody that's probably going to hire you for a significant amount of money. Plus you're talking about benefits and all the rest of this stuff. So then you're going out with your buddies and pounding a bunch of beers, whining that you can't get a job. But they didn't see that part. So it's like still hidden. And when I talk to people about that, they almost get angry because they start to figure out that, oh, this is about me.
Yep.
It's not about the job. All I would have had to do was look for 5 minutes. I could have done it in the elevator. They still don't do it. So it's shocking to me.
Mike, no one's coming to help you, right? Nobody is coming to help you. If you don't do it, if you don't take control yourself, nobody's going to bail you out. And it lives and dies by your effort. And if you don't want to put any effort in, fine, no problem, that's okay. But you're not going to get the reward. If you want that $100,000 job, you need to earn that $100,000. And you earn that through preparing correctly, through showing up the right way, and if you don't, you only, prior preparation and planning prevents poor performance. I mean, we call it the 6 Ps. It's something that I've lived by for a long time.
It was interesting because I've said it on here before. My dad used to say, because I used to ask questions like this, and he'd go, "Hey man, the world needs ditch diggers," and that's pretty much it. Some people just don't have the gumption to figure it out. And let's switch gears a little bit. Tell us how you got involved in the Tech Council, and then you've been doing some stuff over at GCU because I saw you guys over there. Tell us a little bit about that, because that's kind of like, are you familiar with Mike Rowe, the Dirty Jobs guy? That's the kind of stuff that I watched him today. He talks about this nonstop, and he's always trying to support programs or illuminate programs like that. So what are your guys doing with that?
Absolutely. So, I mentioned earlier when we came to Arizona in 2017, we didn't know anybody, right? There were 3 of us and we didn't know anybody. And the first thing we did was get involved with ACA, with the Arizona Commerce Authority, with GPEC, the Greater Phoenix Economic Council, and with the Arizona Tech Council. We got involved straight away, and they helped us, coached us. They brought in, we got mentors. We were just, hey, this is your mentor now. This guy's going to help you, move through this field. And we would not be where we are today without that. And then after the kind of pomp and ceremony of 2017 of being the new kids on the block and meeting all these great people, we then spent the next 9 years building a company. And that was head down, working hard, growing a company through COVID and all those other challenges. And then this is the first year, 2026 is the first year where the business has started to become self-reliant. And we're not in the business as much, which is a weird feeling. We've been in it on the front line, fighting the fires for the last, 14 years. And now, the team, because of our recruitment policies, because of our cultural policies around, the rules and procedures at Air2O, the team now has become, as Steve Jobs would say, A people hire A people and enforce A people. Like we see that is happening. That momentum has started to build at Air2O. Well, what that means for me and the other founders is that we're not needed as much. The child does not need us as much. And so for me, it was a natural progression. Therefore, I'm still in the business and I'm still there every day, but I have more time now to give back. And we would not be here without the local Arizona ecosystem that helps us. And we've learned and got a lot of scars, and we've done it the wrong way and the right way, and we've been down all the wrong paths. And what I wanted to do this year was get back in touch with the community and explain our story and say, hey, we're proof that being part of the ACA Venture Ready program works. Networking with AZTC works. Being part of GPEC works, right? These are good organizations that help if you take the help that's offered. Now, it isn't, it doesn't help with no cost. You have to put in the hard work, which we've done for the last 9 years. But now we're ready to give back, and that's what we're doing. And really, I am from the UK, but Arizona is my home. Phoenix is my home. My children were born here, and this is where I'm going to stay for the rest of my life. And I'm very proud of Phoenix and Arizona, and I want it to do well. And I'm going to do everything that I can do to promote the organizations, the businesses, the ecosystems, to the benefit of all in just my own small way. And if that's going to a manufacturing showcase at GCU and presenting, being the presenting sponsor there and talking a little bit of our story and inspiring the next generation of entrepreneurs, then that's what we're doing.
It's because Phoenix is traditionally can be on the Phoenix area because, you can't, every time you say Phoenix when you're in Scottsdale, somebody corrects you, and that just drives me crazy. Because I think of the Lovey on Gilligan's Island, Schnottsdale, all the time. Like my kid is doing that now. It drives me crazy. But the area around here has generally been, there's a lot of people from a lot of different places, and it's not easy to do what you did in the amount of time. Mm-hmm. I know people that have been trying to do this for 10 years, and they can't crack it. What do you think? Did you guys just put your nose to the grindstone harder, or did you employ people that helped you in town to get this type of recognition or get comfortable talking about all these topics and being in front of people? I mean, that's not an easy thing to do.
It isn't, but nothing worth doing is easy, right? When I was in the military, I had a great leader that looked at me one day and he hiked to the top of this ridge and came back and he showed me a photo of this amazing view. And I said, God, that must have took you all day. And he went, Tom, there's no shortcut to any place worth going. And that stuck in my head forever. And it's true, there's no shortcut to any place worth going. So it is hard. And I think the reality is it's a balance of both things. You have to work hard. You have to put your nose to the grindstone, as you said. But also you need to rely on help from those around you. You can work as hard as you want, but if you're on your own, you're less likely to be successful. We've had great mentorship. Al is in here with us now, and we met Al through the Venture Ready program. He was the guy the state gave us as our marketing guru. And Al and I have stayed together for the last 10 years, and many more examples of that. So it is a balance of both, of accepting help and working hard. To this day. And anybody that knows me and who I network with, I never turn down help or advice. No matter what we've been through, if there's another blind spot or another way of doing things, we should never be ignorant to that.
Okay, so we're at this point in time. What are you looking at for the next 5 years? What's that going to look like? I know you're moving into a new building because Tony was pointing it to me about 6 months ago. What's going on with that, and where do you see you guys going in the next 5?
Yeah, so we have a 6 times expansion, so 6 times bigger than where we're at now. So it's a huge expansion. We really invested in this for the long run. We did not anticipate when we got our current facility in 2021 that we would outgrow it in 4 years, 3 years. And we don't want to make that same mistake twice. We are being artificially held back right now in growth because we are limited to square footage. We can recruit the right people, and we have got a good talent pipeline coming through, but we physically don't have a square inch available in the facility to build more. So the new facility is critical. We've had some delays. We're over those delays now, and we are into full construction. We'll have a partial occupancy at the end of August, and then we'll have a full occupancy, full admin, all the offices, everything finished in December. So Q1 2027, we'll be hitting the ground running. Right now, we are building the largest backlog that we've ever had. We've already met revenue this year, and targeted revenue this year, and we're continuing to build our backlog. The next 5 years shows no signs of slowing down. We are engaged in multiple mission-critical markets. So a lot of people talk to me about, is it all funded by data center? Don't get me wrong, data center is great, but we limit our exposure to any one vertical market. So data center is just part of the pie that we're working on. We have great traction in healthcare, in pharmaceutical, in lithium-ion manufacturing, in clean room fabs. So we've got many different verticals that we're working on. I would like to see Air2O somewhere in the region of $250 million revenue in the next 5 years.
And we were talking about before we got on this gig about reliance on one thing. When you die on that hill, if something happens. Have you guys, how'd you learn that? Not to, hey, we want to do their business, but we don't want to sell out for it, because if something slows down, then you slow down.
So we learned from that mistake twice. So actually you could say we didn't learn from it the first time. Yeah. So we actually were burnt pretty badly in our history in 2 different vertical market collapses. And the reason for that is we're human. And humans, it's incredibly difficult to turn away good work. And so we could do $100 million this year alone in data center. That is very easy. We are getting clients asking, single clients asking for $70 million of just, single source component systems. So we could do that. And it's very difficult when the check is in front of you to say no. And that's why we said yes twice in the past and got burnt both times. So now we have learned from those mistakes. Fool me once, fool me twice. So it is difficult, and we have had to make our business strategy more robust and more robust against single vertical market fluctuation. So that's not only vertical market application, but also geographical, right? We all remember 2008. The way
please,
yeah,
I'm still drinking from that day.
Yeah, so the only reason Air2O survived the post-08 credit crunch was we moved operations to the Middle East. Because although Europe and North America was in a recession, the Middle East was booming. So again, we are very aware of political, geopolitical issues. So we keep ourselves diversified across multiple geographies, multiple vertical markets, so that we can maintain that growth.
So I would imagine, because you talked about the constraints of the building and stuff, when you commit to that one big check, then you're you're tied to that rock as far as it goes.
Sure.
And then you can't do another bit of business. So when that business goes dormant or whatever happens to it, I know you guys did the grow farms and that stuff. Was that one of the bumps? The pot craze, when everybody was, oh my God, pot's going to be everywhere. Well, it is, but it's not like they thought. Was that kind of a bump in the road?
For sure. We did tens of millions of dollars in what we call indoor agriculture. So it's not just the majority of it is marijuana and cannabis, but we also just did your regular leafy greens as well. Internal, what we call vertical agriculture, indoor ag, and when that market burst, all of a sudden we had people and product lines that were no longer being utilized. So we learned from that. We learned from the Big Beautiful Bill, July 15th of last year, when all of the EV subsidiaries ended. One of our major markets was lithium-ion manufacturing. Well, one of the big proponents of lithium-ion manufacturing is EV. So we lost about $20 million in order pipeline in one day. And again, it just shows the need to be diversified.
The government really is a big help when you're running a business. You can't stop that. It's like a guillotine that sits over your head.
Yep.
And you almost got to try to predict the future. And the problem we have now is everything changes every 2 years. That's a real hard deal as a business to go, hey, I've only can map out 2 years because I don't know what's going to happen. Do you guys have that thought in your head too? Based on the swinging back and forth between, the energy thing, the no oil, too much oil. I mean, it's got to be complicated when you're planning a business of this size.
For sure. I mean, we have a board, and we have quarterly board meetings. We meet 4 times a year with our board, who are experts in global politics and energy markets and the rest of it. And ultimately, we can't predict the future. What we can do is mitigate as best as we can. And you do that by being diversified, by not putting all your eggs in one basket, so to speak, and making sure that you have a robust pipeline. So we have the governance there. We have the mitigation measures there. We also have the scars. We've done it the wrong way and survived by the skin of our teeth. I mean, there was a period where, the executive group at Air2O took no salary for maybe 4 months to maintain everybody else's employment because we had not, learned from our mistakes. So we've got the scars, and we hope now that we have, the experience and the stewardship in the future that we can stabilize the boat. But anything could happen. Tomorrow we're looking at Cuba right now as potentially another conflict on the horizon, and who knows what that will cause. We're seeing aluminum double in price. Copper is up, I think, 60%, and these things are happening, very, very quickly. My logistics cost, to move my units is a lot of money.
Yeah,
and the diesel cost has doubled. So, and these are little fluctuations that we have to just be aware of, and really long-term planning.
I mean, this has been a great talk, and like I told you, we blow through time pretty fast. But why don't, to close out what you've been saying, give us what's one thing that you'd like people to know about Air2O? What do you think what's the most important thing you think going forward for your company?
I like two answers, if I can. The most important thing at Air2O are the people. And that is a cheesy thing to say, but it is absolutely true. Many times in staff meetings, I will say, it doesn't matter if we build air conditioning units or fence posts, right? The products is what we have to offer to the market. What's important is we're building a company of people that spend more time together than we do with our own families. Let's make it the best place that we can. So that's number one. That's what's most important to Air2O. In terms of what's most important to the future of Air2O, it would be innovation and pushing those boundaries. I think any organization that grows and gets to a certain, scale always runs the risk of becoming complacent and not pushing those boundaries anymore and losing their culture, becoming too corporate US, right? Corporate America. And we've always, myself, the leadership team and everybody at Air2O have got to keep an eye on what made us, get to where we are. It is true, what got you there, what got you here won't get you there, but that is not a blanket statement. Some of what got you here needs to stay.
Great, Tom. It's been great talking with you, and I appreciate you spending the time. This is Mike Hayes for the Hiring Confessional. Remember what I say every time? If you haven't talked to a friend lately, reach out to them and see how they're doing. Plus, you get to hang out. That's the best part. Have a good day.